Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you today. So we are working on this Bally 8-ball pinball machine that we've had in for a while. And we're just about to start with the electrical stuff, so the electronic stuff. And then we need to work on the playfield. Obviously, it's pretty rough. But the thing's in fair condition. A lot of the paint's been touched up on the side. It looks pretty good. It looks nice and clean again, but the playfield is a different story. So we have had this note on it in our showroom. Please be patient. I'm a work in progress, just like the song says, right? We've got the glass still on it, obviously, so a lot of this dust is on the glass, but you've got wear at both of the slingshots that has been touched up with paint at some point. You've got some kind of extra paint on the playfield. You've got wear on pretty much all of the little pool balls. We did one like this. There's a video here on YouTube of us repainting a bunch of a 8-ball playfield at one point. We've got wear up here that needs to be touched up. Got a lot of wear over here that needs to be touched up. So this thing has a lot of wear on it, but I think it's going to come out pretty good. And it's such a cool game. It's certainly deserving of being well, I don't like to say the word restored because we don't make them perfect, you know. It's deserving of being what's the best word? What would be a good word to describe what we do? Restored. I don't know what we should call it. I probably should have thought of that before I started doing the video. Repaired. We're definitely going to repair it, right? Let's see what's inside of it, if I can get it to spin around. We've got it on a cart here. Try not to hit that other. We got this Williams Grand Prix here we're going to do too pretty soon. We're in a pinball mood again. The way I like to do it is I like to do a few pinball machines for a while, and then a few arcade games for a while, and then a few jukeboxes for a while. Alright, so here's the insides. So whenever we're working on stuff, we start at the wall. So the power switch, the power wire comes in, power cord, runs through a switch and a little line filter in the bottom, and then it comes up here to this rectifier board here, right, and this transformer. So we're going to take that out, work on it a little bit, and then the power runs from there up here to this. I think they call this the regulator board, the solenoid driver board. But this part up here regulates the 12 volts that this sends it into the 5 volts that runs all the boards. So we'll take this driver board out and work on it, and then the power goes over here to this CPU board that has a little bit of acid damage and is actually a Stern CPU board, so it's not the right one, but you know, they're all the same design. We've got some cut wires here just hanging out of one of the connectors. We got to fix. Oh, never mind. That's going to this knocker up here. Still needs to be fixed. And then we've got the lamp board down here. But I think what we're going to do on this one is we're not going to actually fix the CPU. I think we're going to order a new board for it. But we'll go over that whenever we get it in. We've got all of our displays here. Don't know if they work or not. But so we got to get it going electronically first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the glass off, pop up the playfield, and look under it and make sure there's not something crazy going on underneath it. So let's see how that cord looks when it comes in the game. Alright, so the power line is coming in and it's attached to the filter over there. Everything looks cool. That's how it's all supposed to be. Everything looks clean. Well, the cabinet's not clean, but I mean the connection and everything's clean. Here's the chimes. I wonder if they still chime. Should we try to chime them? This bro isn't heavy enough. Oh heck, I got a screwdriver. That'll work. So this will be the first time these have chimed in probably 30 years. Needs a little work. We'll get it though. We'll get them sounding good. Okay, so here's the underside of the playfield. Bunch of the light bulbs are missing, and then they didn't put them back. That's weird. We've got some wires unsoldered. There was a switch here for this to hit, this rollover to hit, and these would have been the wires that went to the switch, I believe. So it's missing for whatever reason. It would be, I wonder if there's another rollover. I don't see another one on the playfield, but it would be very similar to this. We'll figure that out though. The switches all look good. We've got, this is missing a screw, a little loose. This is missing a screw, but that one's not. Strange. Alright, so we've got some pop bumper issues. Yeah, definitely gonna have to look into that. Got more light bulbs missing for whatever reason. Of course, that's no big deal. I mean, we replaced all the light bulbs, obviously, but why would they be missing and then they didn't put them back? Very strange. To see this kind of stuff, that's just filth on the bottom of the insert, so all that needs to be cleaned off or the light won't shine bright through it. It'll look all dirty. I see more wires. So that's just kind of hanging there. Maybe that went there. What the hell, people? What are they doing to me? This can all be repaired though. I got some weird stuff going on there. What in the world? So basically this turns on this light and this turns on this light, but they added a wire to make it where they both turn on at the same time. Must have had a bad lamp driver board or something. And then up here we're missing, did something go there? Oh, it's the whole kicker. So like one of these goes here and it would have grabbed this, and when the plunger goes in, it kicks the ball. So this is missing off this side, and that's what these wires go to. And then the flippers appear complete. This one at some point has had the coil replaced. This one has not, but that's fine. Something just fell. Okay, so we're pretty good. So like this part that's missing, I've got a bunch of those. I think I probably got that in the back room, just off of a parts board. The minor parts that are missing off this I'll have in the back. The switch that goes on the button I'll probably have in the back. Lamp sockets, I've got new lamp sockets that I can replace the missing ones with. And of course I've got light bulbs. So that won't be no big deal. Alright, so we're gonna I guess we're gonna turn it on once I get the power boards right, but we got some stuff unhooked. It looks like nothing's touching anything though, so we'll probably be alright to turn it on. This I don't like. See if we can keep that out of the way. Alright. Okay, so we can lay that back down, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that transformer and the rectifier board out of the back. So I'm pulling this transformer out, and this bottom connector should be, I think it's 20 pins. It should be one big connector, but what happens is some of the pins burn up over time, so the operators fix them however they can. So what this operator did was he soldered one of the wires onto a damn Molex pin. Damn, I can't even get it out. So I mean, hell, it'll work like that, but we're gonna make it how it's supposed to be. So I'll mess with that a little bit, and then hopefully I'll have this thing out of here. Okay, so the main thing you need to do is get all of the solder nice on the back of these pins. So I've resoldered every one, and if it doesn't look good, you're screwed, because you'll lose a voltage. Something won't work. And then if the pins will clean up like these did, you can leave them. But if you've got some that are just burnt all to hell, or they're just all messed up, or they're falling out, you know, you need to replace these pins. These are still in pretty good shape, so I'm going to be able to leave them. And then on this particular board, they've got the 3 bridge rectifiers here, and they go to this heat sink. Well, the screws were missing because somebody's been messing with the board, so I'm tracking down more screws. It looks like they're a number 6 screw metric. So I'm trying to get new screws to hold that back in how it goes, so that these bridge rectifiers are held to that heat sink, so that they don't burn themselves up. And check all the fuses, make sure all the fuses are fine. Check the bridge rectifiers if you don't know how to do that. Look real close. One of the leads says negative. If you put your positive lead on that and then use your diode check to check between that, and so put your positive on the negative and then put the negative on this one and see if you get a 0.4 to 0.6 voltage drop like you should. Positive on this one and then check to that one, put the negative on that one, see if you get a 0.4 to 0.6 voltage drop like you should. And then this one over here is the positive, it says right there. So if you put your negative on that one and then your positive on this one, you should get a 0.4 to 0.6 voltage drop. And if you put your negative on that one and a positive on this one, you should get a 0.4 to 0.6 voltage drop. And if you do, all your bridges are good. And then there's some diodes up here. I think this is just for like general illumination, but it's the same thing basically. They're creating a bridge rectifier out of diodes. And so if you check all 4 of those diodes with your multimeter, but if one of these blows, this fuse would immediately blow. So, or whichever fuse it is it that one? Whichever fuse that goes to would blow. Sometimes you'll get where these 2 resistors are falling apart. You have to replace those, but these are still fine. And that's all that there really is on the thing. There's a bunch of wires soldered to it, so if any of those are loose, resolder them that go to the transformer. But generally this transformer's fine. You hardly ever have a problem out of it. We've had, I think, 2 bad ones out of maybe 100 Ballys we've done. So they don't fail too often. So I'm going to check all of those bridges. I'm going to check the diodes. If you need to replace one of the bridge rectifiers, a little trick you can do is you can take it out and then put a bigger one and mount it on the top. It doesn't have to be mounted on the back underneath like that. You can mount like if this one's bad, you can mount a big one on the top here. And if they're oversized enough, you don't usually even need a heat sink for them. So we'll check those, see if they're good. If your fuses are good, your bridges are probably good, but it could be that somebody had a fuse that kept blowing and they replaced it and then never checked it afterwards, and the reason it was blowing was because of the bridge. So we'll check all that while we got it out, and we'll screw it back together and get everything cleaned up a little bit. But then we're going to have to work on those Molex connectors that go on the 3 plugs here. So we'll do that next. Okay, folks, I wanted to show you something. So whenever I took it all apart and checked everything, 4 of these fuses were the wrong ones, and they weren't even close. So with the fuses in there, it's a little harder to see, but this one says 3 amp slow blow. They had a 5 amp slow blow. This one's a 20 amp. They had a 10 amp. This one is a 3 amp. They had the right one in it. This one is a 4 amp. They had a 3 amp in it. This one is a 3/4 amp. They had a 5 amp in it. This should be a slow blow one too. And this one's a 10 amp, and it had the right 10 amp. So 4 of them are wrong, 2 of them are right. But you got to be careful about that stuff, man, because they put these fuses in there because if something's screwed up and it shorts, it'll blow the fuse. It'll be the cheap part. That's why they're removable, and they don't cost much. They're like $0.25, 50 cents. But if you put the wrong fuse in, you'll get too much power running through it, and it'll catch something on fire or worse. You know, so it's listed right there on the thing. So put the one that matches that. You can't go higher on a fuse. It has to be the exact number. And there's only 2 kinds, 250 volt. Well, pretty much anymore. There's only two kinds, 250 volt and 32 volt. So on some of the bigger ones, like 20, like this one was a 20 amp, it'll be like a 32 volt, something like that. And these 3/4 ones, like this, a 3/4 volt. The reason that's so important is because that's the one for the displays. So if you put like a big fuse on that, you'll burn your displays up. But we got them all right, and we're going to put it back in. Okay, folks, like usual, I'm making my little list here, and I had to look in the manual because whenever they've hacked one, man, and there's wires all over the place, you got to look it up to make sure you're putting them back in the right spot. That bottom connector has 20 positions, like we were saying, and so whenever they're replacing part of it with a little piece like this where they've taped the wires back, if they tape one in the wrong spot, you're sending voltage where it don't need to go. You could have some serious problems. So we also did the other connectors, but on those we didn't replace the housing because usually they're fine. So the little Molex housing wasn't a problem, we'll leave it, but we replaced all the pins. And on this one it was so screwed up that of course the housing was broke, so we put a brand new nice one on it. Check that out. You could put two on it, but then you get in a problem where you might put them in backwards if you unplug it or something, so it's better to just make it one big housing like it was originally. And so we'll put that back on there. And what we always try to make apparent in our videos is whenever you're fixing these, the way to do it is with a systematic approach, right? So the systematic approach that we use is we just follow the power. So the first thing that has to happen because if you don't get everything lined up right, I mean, you're just going to be chasing problems forever, you know. So the power comes in from the wall, and then comes up here, goes through this rectifier, and then comes up to here, and then goes from there to there. So we're doing it all in order, and then whenever we get to the end, actually playing it, everything will be solid. So that's what we're looking for. So now that we've got that all straightened out, what we're going to do is I'm going to unplug some of these connectors. So I think the one over here too. I might have that wrong. But anyway, so I've unplugged this board, I've unplugged the power off that board, and I think that's the power on that one. If I got that right, looks like it might be both of them. We're going to test the output of this thing. I don't have to worry about the displays because this board does the display power. So we're going to turn it on, and we're going to check with these 5 little lugs up here if we've got the right voltages coming out. And if we do, then we know that part of it's done. And we can move on to this. So let me get I'll get a tripod and set it up so that you can see us checking the voltage, and we'll figure out if that's right or not. Okay, folks, so we have turned it on, and when we did, a bunch of the general illumination lights are now on, but they're the old half burned out ones. So I went back in the manual and I made a list of the 5 test point voltages. And where you get the ground, this makes no sense, but it is what it is on the bottom of this resistor. That's the ground point. There's probably a couple other ones, but that's where it always says to test it. So we're going to test, this is test point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So test point 1 is 6.1 volts DC. It should be 5.4 volts DC. Okay, so it's a little high, right? That's because we don't have a load on it. We don't have anything plugged into it. So I was doing a video like this a little bit ago, and some guy replied and said, is there a place that, so basically I'm going to tell you right now, it says 5.4 volts DC, but we're getting 6.1. In my opinion, that's fine. It's just a little high because the load's not hooked up, right? So a guy replied and said, is there a place that has a list of what it should be without the load? Because I don't want to play the 6.1 volts is fine game. This is the kind of smart ass comments I get all the time on YouTube, constantly, every day, tons of them. But anyway, so he says he doesn't want to play the 6.1 volt is fine game. Well, if you don't want to play the game, if you can't risk anything, this ain't for you. Don't do this. You know, I mean, none of this is exact, you know. So 5.4 is measuring 6.1. In my opinion, I'm not the best at this, but I've been doing it a while. That's just fine if nothing's hooked up. It's at 6.1. So 2, here, we're going to get the same thing here, right? So 2 should be 230 volts, but check this out. It's low, actually. 186 volts. I don't know why it does that, but it does. For whatever reason, that voltage goes down when there's no load. Well, I'll prove it here in a minute. Number 3 should be 11 volts. We're getting 12.56. Again, it's a little high because there's no load. Number 5 should be 43 volts. We're at 45. It's a little high because there's no load. And then the number 4 is actually an AC voltage, so it should be 7.3 volts AC. And we're, if we can get it up to it, we're at 6.9. It's close, right? So when you're testing this, you're not looking for exact voltages because some of the stuff gets regulated later, right? You're just looking to see if anything's way out of whack, like one of them's completely missing, or one of them's half what it's supposed to be, or one of them's double what it's supposed to be. So you're just looking for that. So we're in the ballpark on all of them. The rectifier board, in my opinion, is rebuilt. Everything's cool. So now we can move on up to the solenoid driver. So we'll check that out. Okay, so this is our solenoid driver board. We've done like 10 videos about these, but we like doing them often for each machine that we're doing because heck, we're going through all this trouble, we might as well film some of it. And it seems like people catch one video but they don't catch another video, so maybe somebody will see this video that didn't see the other video, whatever. If you want more information about any of these boards or anything that we're working on, if you look through our past history and find another Bally pinball machine or another Stern pinball machine, chances are we did the exact same stuff on those, so check it out. So these solenoid driver boards, basically some signals come in, I think from here, from the MPU, and control these chips, which control all of these transistors down here that turn on solenoids and stuff, so to make, you know, things work on the playfield. That's usually pretty straightforward. Sometimes you have a problem with these, but usually you'll have some of these that are bad. Many times you won't have any, but if you do have a problem, one of these will be bad. You can see that a couple look like they've been replaced at some point. Then you also have over here, this is the flipper relay, and it's just one of these turns this thing on. So basically that's so that whenever the game's turned off, I mean whenever the game is in standby and there's no quarter in it, you're not in the middle of a game, the flippers are turned off because this relay is turned off. And so there's 2 wires that run in up here, go through the relay, and then run back out here. This area creates the high voltage for the displays. So this area makes the displays work, right? And this area makes the 12 volts that comes from the bottom, or I think it was supposed to be 11 volts or 11.9 volts or whatever. I think it was 11 point something, but it was high. It was 12.4 or something like that. That voltage is turned into a steady 5 volts by this area. Now, I say a steady 5 volts, but it's actually a little high. It's about 5.2, 5.3. You want it somewhere between 5 and 5.3 or so. So why do you want it a little bit higher than 5 if everything runs on 5? The 5 that it makes runs all the little IC chips, both on this board and over on the MPU board, and also on the lamp board that we were looking at, and on the sound board if there's a sound board in the game. Oh, you know what? The sound board may make its own. Scratch that. But it creates a 5 volts, and IC chips like having a good proper voltage. You know, they don't like having it too high or too low. So the reason that it makes it a little high, 5.3, something like that, is because you get a little bit of resistance coming out of your connectors. So if you've got a connector here, if it's a little dirty, and then you've got it runs wire through the machine and out goes over the MPU board, and there's another connector there, and then it has to run all the way across the MPU board over to this chip over here. By the time it does all that, if it was an exact 5 volts, it might only be 4.8 at this chip, you know. So if it starts at 5.3, when it gets to this chip, it'll be a little bit over 5 and everything will be good. But it might mean that maybe this chip gets 5.3, you know. So again, it doesn't have to be exact, but you want it in the ballpark. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to test all of these transistors, make sure none of them are bad with just a diode check. And the way I do it, I can't even remember if it's you compare the top leg to the bottom leg or whatever, but you set your meter on Diode Check, and then you look for all of them to read the same. You don't even have to know what they're supposed to read. If this one, if they all read about the same, you know, a little bit off or, you know, pretty close, well, hell, they're all good. There's no way there's 10 of them that are bad, you know. But if all these read the same and then you get one that reads completely different, like between the bottom leg and the top leg, if it's 0.685 on the Diode Check, but this one it's 1.45, or on this one is 0, you know, well, you know there's a problem there. Something ain't right. One of them's wrong. But you got 20 of them, you know, just check between them. You can fix so much stuff with just that idea. All you have to do is just compare them to each other. You may get a situation where, like, if this chip goes bad, all of these test bad or something, but that's pretty rare. Usually that's not what goes on. This is the voltage regulator that creates the 5 volts. This cap here typically needs to be replaced. Somebody has replaced this one though. I don't know if it's got it doesn't have a date on it, but if you look, it's got decently new solder. It's got new ties on it. So somebody has replaced that. So we probably don't have to do it again. You know, we'll probably leave it. This cap up here, if you get a problem where your displays are flickering a lot, sometimes it's this cap. There's a couple updates that Clay always says to do, and it looks like somebody's done a couple, or one of them at least. Clay from pinrepair.com. Is it Pin Repair? Pinrepair.com, I believe. If I got that wrong, sorry, Clay. You connect these two test points together. So that is test point number 1 and test point number 3. Number 1 and number 3. Not to be confused with number 5. Don't mess with number 5. But number 1 and number 3 you connect together. The reason that you do that is because there's a situation here where there's a voltage that goes out of the board on the connector and then comes back in the board on another connector to get over to something. And I don't know if, I think it's 5 volts or whatever, but if you connect the two, it just makes it a stronger connection on the board, and it keeps everything, you know, more reliable. The other thing that he always suggests to do is the negative trace on this, which is this wire here. See, this one's marked positive, this one's negative, right? The negative trace sometimes has a similar problem where it comes over here, and if you look, it runs to 1 pin or something, and then it goes out of the board and connects to something else. But what he always says to do is connect it to this trace just below it. And by doing that, you basically, you know, make things a little more solid and reliable. So we'll just put some solder on there to bridge those two together, make it a little more reliable. And we're going to resolder all of the pins, although somebody's already done it. This up here looks god-awful. There's even burn marks on the board. I don't know how the hell that happened. But somebody went after this thing with something hot. So I'm going to carefully look at the top couple. Look at that. They're not even, good Lord. Looks like they don't connect to anything anyway, but look at that crap. So I'm going to try to pretty that up a little bit and get it where it's a little better connected. I might use my meter to check from the pin on the other side to whatever it connects to on the back, you know. So like for instance, that one connects to that pin. Well, if you put your meter on that pin on that side and then connect over to here, that'll tell you if that connection's good. So we'll pretty it up a little bit, and then I'll show you what it looks like before we put it back in. Okay, folks, so I actually had to remove the connector. Look at this crap. Something has caught on fire or something. I'm going to look it up in the manual and see what those pins are, but if you look really close, this trace right here is completely burnt off. So this should go over to here. It's burnt off. This one is, it might still be there. So I got to mess with those. This trace here had like a big pin on it that they were using for a jumper. It got screwed up somehow. It looks like they tried to solder it with like maybe one of those big old guns or something. I don't know. This one, the pin is completely lifted up. So we got to get this nice and solid. So I'm going to replace this connector. Look at these damn pins. Look at that crap. Now this board isn't really worth all that much money. You can buy these brand new for about $100, and you can buy them used for like $15 or $20. But why not fix the one that's in it, right? So I'm going to put a new connector on there, and I'm going to look in the manual and see what those pins are, and I'll let you know what it says. I'll make a list of all of them, and then we can we'll test to make sure everything's connected right. Look the two traces that are burnt. One of them goes all the way around over to here, and there was like it looks like at some point they had a jumper on that or something. And then when it comes down here, it comes down to these little staples and comes across to one of these pins here where it leaves the game. There may be a situation where we don't even need it. It might be just for a different game or for future expansion or something, but I'll make a list of what they all do and where they all go, and I'll put a new connector on it, and we'll see what we can come up with. Alright, so I straightened it all up. So pin number 1 doesn't connect to anything. Pin number 2 is the key, which means that that pin is missing in the connector to help you from putting it on backwards, right? So number 1 and number 2 don't do anything. Number 3 we got looking good. 4 we got looking good. 5, 6, okay, 7 that was cut, right? It doesn't actually hook to anything. That's not even used. So I think what was going on was this number 8 was messed up, and so they must have cut 7 and 9 themselves, possibly by just burning them with a soldering iron, which might be why those burn marks are there. So that if number 8 touched number 7 or touched number 9 with their crappy solder job, that it wouldn't matter because it's not connected to anything. Okay, so number 7, I mean, I've got them all, connected good, but number 7 doesn't even connect to anything. And this trace up here is also broke, but the way that works is 7 comes from, it's just a double of this pin here. So this transistor goes to this wire, but then it also comes around here and blah, 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 blah. But it's not even used on this game. So it may be used on a later game, but not on this one. So number 8 connects to the insert. So basically it's running some of the light bulbs, I believe, on the back box or something. Or I guess maybe it's sending power up to the insert, which is the thing on the back box that has all the light bulbs in it. Number 9 is also not used. So they cut it loose, I think just in case it was shorted to number 8. Number 10 actually goes down here somewhere on the board. 11 and 12 were connected to 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, which is a big no-no. So I cleaned that up to where they're no longer connected. And I think we got everything looking good. I replaced the big ugly jumper with a smaller, more petite jumper. I still got to do this one, and I got to check all of these, and I got to resolder the connectors, but we about got it. So I'll finish that up, and we'll throw it up in there. Okay, folks, so I have hooked the solenoid driver board back up in it, and on this one it has a ground on the board. I don't know if you can see that. There is a ground test point right there that's marked. You won't be able to see me doing the test point 5 because of where the meter is, but I want you to see the meter. So if I check test point 5, look, I've got way up over 15 volts. Remember how I was saying none of that mattered? And then test point 3 is the regulated 5-volt output. If I can get my connector on it. Well, there we go. 5.19. Remember, well, did I just do that whole thing with my arm in your way? No, I think you're all right. Yeah. 5.19, right? So we're getting, our regulator is making our 5 volts like we wanted. Now we're gonna go back to this power supply though, because I want to show you how this works. So now that we have a load on it, if I check these same voltages, they're all different. So the first one is 6.3, okay. The second one, remember that was our That was our display voltage. Remember, it was like 175, and I was like, whenever you get a load, it actually goes up. So look, it's gone up to 243, right? The third one is now up over 15, like we were saying, and the 43 one is still at 44 or whatever, like it was before. And then I'm going to show you something else here. You won't be able to, well, I'll go back down. Up here in this area where the display voltages are, there are two test points. So one of them is the voltage, the 245 or whatever coming in, and then one of them is the voltage going out to the displays. That 250 or whatever is too high. Now I don't know why they made it where it makes a 250 volt voltage if they were never going to use it. I don't know why they made it where that gets adjusted down so much, but I'm sure there's a great reason. Let's go back down to where you can see my meter. Okay, so if we check the first one, well, this is the first one. So this is the voltage going in, 250 volts, and then the voltage going out to the displays is actually 177 volts. So that's kind of where you want it. You don't want it, I think in the manual it might say 190 or something like that, but if you turn it down a little bit, the displays last longer. So what do we know? We now know that the rectifier board's working fine. We now know that the solenoid driver board, we believe, is working fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it off and then hook the MPU board back up. So not because we're going to leave it like that, but just for giggles, I want to see if the board is still working, or, you know, what's going on with it. So you saw that the power supply was hacked. The connector over here was hacked. This stuff could have still been running, but I don't know. We didn't even try to turn it on, remember? But now we know that the power supply is good. We know the solenoid driver board, at least the parts that we messed with, are good. So now we're ready to mess with the MPU board. But I'm just going to try to turn it on with the board plugged in and see if the board was still up and running. So I haven't turned it on yet. There is a diode right here, an LED. And I plugged the power back in, so I'm going to turn it on. So this LED, if everything's working fine, which I doubt, but if everything's working fine, you'll see a real quick flicker, and then you'll see 7 flashes. It's doing a bunch of checks and stuff. So if we're probably going to get one of 3 things. We're either going to get a real quick flicker, and then it does 2 flashes and stops, or we're going to get where it's always on, or we're going to get where it just stays off. This is kind of the most fun part of working on one of these, because we're about to see if she feels like coming back alive. Probably not, though. It's probably just going to stay on, would be my guess. Nope, instead we're getting no flickers, nothing, no flickers at all. Let's see if we're getting any voltage over there. I believe I've got everything plugged in that needs to be plugged in. This would be a good test point. Where is the 5 volts? This is our other one. 1.6 volts. I don't think that's right. It might be though. 14 volts. 22 volts. I don't know if it's got its 5 volts. Oh, test point 6. 12 volts. It's got issues, people. Oh well, it didn't come up like we hoped it might. I'll take that board out and we'll look at it. It may be too far gone. Like I said, we're probably going to put a new board in it anyway, but if this one's not too far gone, we'll try to fix it, just so we can use it as a test board or something. Okay folks, so I looked in the manual. This is the test point that should have been our 5 volts, and it was only giving us like 1.5 volts or something like that. Now the reason is because of all of the alkaline damage. So everybody probably knows this, but if anybody's watching this that hasn't repaired a bunch of Bally pinball machines, when they first came out they had a battery soldered from here to here, and that battery leaks over time. These things were kind of designed to last like 2 years. The whole machine, not just the battery, the whole machine. They thought they would have like a 2-year life. And so now this came out in what, 77? It's 2019. So that's 42 years later, we're still messing with it. Like I mentioned before too, this is the wrong board. This is actually a Stern Mpu board, but Stern ripped off Bally's design and made theirs exactly like it. So you can use a Stern PCB in a Bally machine, and you can use a Bally PCB in a Stern machine. It'd be interesting to see if this actually is an 8-ball ROM set. It kind of looks like it is, but you can see how filthy all the ROMs are. All the legs are filthy, and see this bottom on all the corrosion on it from the alkaline. So I think what I'll do is I'll try to clean it up a little bit. Look, this cap's completely gone. C1. I'll try to clean it up a little bit just for giggles and see if we can get it to work. But I'm going to order a new... Oh, wait a minute. Might not be able to do that. Look how bad this is over here. If you ever wanted to see what the inside of a cap looks like, there's the two legs and what's left of them. Look at that. Yeah, this one's pretty far gone, people. Well, we'll have to wait for our new board to get the thing up and running. But I'll order that, and I'll look at the playfield and see if there's anything else that looks like that we need to order. And when we get it in, I'll show you what happens. So I guess that'll be the end of this. Ooh, yeah, look at the back. Whoo! So we're going to have to wait for another video to get it up and running. But as you knew, there was going to be more than one video anyway. So we've got our power running over to the board. We didn't get it on the board yet, but I suspect that's because of bad connections on this power connector here, and then it wouldn't have worked anyway with all of this corrosion. So. Wah, wah, wah. I'll order the board whenever it comes back in. We'll film it, and usually whenever I upload these videos too, I don't upload them until I've already fixed the whole game. So if you're watching this video, the only reason it's online is because I've already repaired this whole game. Or I wouldn't have uploaded it. That's another thing. I've got some halfway recorded videos that you folks have never seen because I never finished fixing the game. It's still here. Now eventually I'm going to fix it and finish it, and when I do, I'll upload the video. So leave your comments below, give us a thumbs up for filming it this far, and let us know what you think so far, and we'll give you a shout out whenever the next video is coming up. If you subscribe to us, I think I think you have to hit ring the bell or whatever, but it'll tell you whenever the next video is up. But if we've uploaded this one, the next one will not be far off. We'll see you on the next video. Leave your comments below, and have a good evening.